Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to episode 11 of Cuberviews. This is your host, Ian Braverman. Today I am joined by my longtime friend, Ryan Stollman. How are you doing?
Hey, great.
Well, I'm excited to have you on, Ryan. I've known Ryan for many years. We went to UConn together, played at the UConn Magic Club, started as this tiny little club with like 5 people, and then eventually became like 30, 40 people. Still been friends playing Cube after that. And you're also the CubeCon genius. You were like
Oh yeah.
undefeated.
It, in the standings, I was still number one.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. That's cool. And yeah, so we play every week at Games IRL in Avon, Connecticut. I say that every week. If you're in the area, come join us. And yeah, Ryan, introduce yourself.
Been playing Magic since like 2012-ish. Mainly like standard and commander, but I've done a little splashes into basically every format the game has to offer. Quite enjoyed playing Cube for a very long time, but only very recently, in like the last year or so, begun my journey into being a Cube designer. Certainly still have a very long way to go on that front, as Ian can attest.
You've made some interesting cubes, I'll say that.
Haven't all been bangers.
Hey, I love when I'm playing Blink. My opponent goes Elish Norn in humility. It's great.
Yeah, we like to have fun here.
Yeah. And what do you do outside of work?
So I'm currently studying to become an actuary. That is, whenever I'm not like playing Magic or any other games like Hearthstone, D&D, Baldur's Gate, or more recently Pokemon Pocket. If we got any Pocket gamers out there.
Ooh, Pokemon Pocket. I haven't played that yet, but I've heard it's great.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a fun episode in store today. Today, we're talking about something that's adjacent to Cube, I would say, Judge Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Want to explain to everyone what Judge Tower is?
Sure. So in Judge's Tower, basic premise, all players share the same deck. They have infinite life, infinite mana. And you may be like, so then what do you do in this game? Well, the only way for a player to lose the game is for them to make a rules infraction. These can be like your normal rules infractions, like making an illegal play, drawing too many cards, attacking with creatures with summoning sickness, all that good stuff. But in addition, players also have to make sure to point out all of their triggered abilities, choose any additional or optional modes in their cards, and most importantly, they have to make every possible game action as soon as they legally can.
Yeah, Judge Tower is really funny because it's kind of turning Magic on its head.
Mm-hmm.
Usually in Magic, card advantage a good thing. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
drawing all these cards. That's great. In Judge Tower, drawing cards is a nightmare because now you
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with these cards. And when you draw a card that says draw a card on it, you're like, oh no, that means more cards. I have to figure out what they do.
Usually you're sad when your opponent is playing solitaire. Not the case here.
Yes, you're just laughing maniacally, like, this idiot has to figure out what these terrible cards do. And so Judge Tower is a pretty polarizing format, I'd say. What would you say is the sales pitch for somebody who might be skeptical to try it out?
That's extremely fair. I won't make any clickbaity claims. Judge's Tower is not for everyone. In fact, a lot of the judges I work with, ironically, aren't particularly fond of the format.
That's funny.
However, like a lot of people get scared off by the name, thinking that because they aren't judges, that they have no hope or can't play through the tower. But if nothing else, I want to make completely clear that it is absolutely for more than just judges. It is at its very core, above all else. It's a game of battlefield management to me, making sure you remember to do everything you need to do each turn.
I feel like sometimes Commander feels like Judge Tower these days. Did you pay the one? Did you pay the
Mm-hmm.
two? That creature enters
I have
tapped.
certainly made more than one commander deck in an attempt to emulate Judge's Tower in that format.
Oh, I'm sure you have. And so Judge Tower isn't, of course, only for judges, it's for
Mm-hmm.
everybody. Who do you say is like the main audience for Judge Tower? Is it like for somebody who oh, I'm trying to really learn the rules so I can become a judge? Or is it just for somebody who wants to improve as a player?
It's really like no other format. Every turn, very high stress. You really need to think through every single move you make. Kind of feels like playing chess with magic cards. So if you're a kind of player that you really enjoy thinking about the game, don't necessarily need to have all the rules knowledge of a judge, but this format will definitely ask you to think through every play you make, and it will really reward you or punish you at each decision point.
So would you say that you're good at Judge Tower, being a judge?
Certainly helps to have a good understanding of like the inner workings of the game, especially like priority and the steps of casting a spell. But I don't think my win rate is even particularly that good. I've definitely played the game the most out of like people we normally play with, but it's always a fun challenge.
Yes. I'm definitely pretty bad at it. So I've had many Judge Tower games where I draw my opening hand and I
Mhm.
literally just lose on the spot. It's like, oh, I didn't play this when I was supposed to.
Uh-oh.
I guess I concede. And how does
Certainly
one
done a
go
lot.
about building a Judge Tower?
So that's one of the big barriers to entry for this format. There's unfortunately not very many people with their own towers for people to get exposed to the format naturally, just from like going to their LGS or their local play group. Nor are there very many deck lists online, even for Judges Towers. There are a few, and that is how I started out, just compiling cards from the couple lists that I could find and looking through like bulk boxes for just cool looking cards that seemed interesting. Trying to figure out what cards to include, really up to the designer as much as it would be for any normal cube. You can tune it, make it easier, harder, more rules focused or trigger focused. Uh, Tower can really be made however you want and be playable.
Yeah, I feel like there's a different kind of mix of cards you can include in a Judge Tower.
Oh, definitely. Even like the core rules surrounding the format are, it's not a sanctioned format, so there aren't strict rules. You can go online and find 7 different rule sets for how people want to handle rounds. Some people like you don't lose for the first rules mistake, like you need to get to 3 and then you're out. Even after 5 years of playing this, I'm not certain that the rule set I'm working with is the one that I think is ideal.
That's really interesting. And so it's cool that there's like a different mix of cards you can include. Like you can include like I think what a lot of people would expect in
Mm-hmm.
Judge Tower cards that are just like really difficult to read and like
Mm-hmm.
nonsense Oracle text that makes no sense. Or you can include cards that, like you said, are more like field management cards that are
Mm-hmm.
triggering constantly and are really easy to miss. Or cards that are just like hard to understand or aren't very common in Magic, like for example, a battle or something that
Mm-hmm.
showed up once. What kind of cards do you include in the Judge Tower?
So I really like to look for cards that are super innocuous looking, are just being simple or easily forgettable effects, cards that do multiple different things. I'd like to throw in some cards that really test specific like player reading comprehension skills.
I
Uh,
can't read, so
that famous Magic player problem.
yes,
Not being able to read the card. Creatures are at their core like the most innate utility to them because they are the only ones that interact with the combat step, which is a big part of this. You have to attack with every creature every turn, and you need to block with every creature every turn. So just at baseline, creatures plus whatever text is printed on them do extra things. So they're the largest represented group in my tower. Also started off with quite a lot of card draw effects and then have kind of shaved it down a little bit so people don't just chain them and storm off to infinity.
take a 400-year turn.
Exactly.
I can't tell you the amount of times that I've played Judge Tower and I have creatures in play and I just forget. to actually attack with the creatures. Like,
Hmm.
oh, there's an attack step. These
It
don't
happens
just
a
have some
lot.
garbage thing because they have so many crazy words, but creatures
Hmm.
attack.
You're so caught up with the text, you forget about the basics of the game.
Yes. One thing that's really funny is how many times that you try and get rid of the things on your own board when you like
Hmm.
draw like a spell that can kill a creature and you're like, I can kill my own thing.
There is very little removal in the tower for exactly that reason. I don't want things to be easy to get rid of for yourself.
Yes. And are there any kinds of cards that you purposely try to avoid or different types of effects that you don't like to include?
As I just mentioned, there's like a critical mass of draw effects. You still want some to be able to ramp up the game at a reasonable pace, but too many and it just goes crazy. I like to make sure that any card advantage I do add for that reason also has something else interesting going along with it. Additionally, I try to avoid effects that make people not do things. Humility is a card that is recommended to me to put in the tower constantly, but all it would really do is make sure that the creatures don't do anything. That sounds like a pretty boring gameplay. Sure, there's like some weird layer things that could come up every once in a while, but on average, it feels like a net negative. I also like to make sure that any cards that have like functional erratas in their Oracle text changes aren't included so that players aren't just getting out because the card that says it does actually does something else. And then people would have to be looking up the Oracle text of the cards on their phone the whole game, and that just slows everything down and it's a mess.
Yeah, games can already take a long time. Like I remember
Mhm.
that one turn that Sam took like a 40-minute turn because he just kept drawing cards and getting card advantage and it was awesome, but we were kind of sitting for a while. It was pretty impressive because he lived that long through his turn and we
That
were like
was quite a while, yeah.
and then I think he passed and then I died like on my upkeep because I just forgot a trigger. I was like, wow, I'm an idiot. Yeah, so is there like a balance between keeping the experience fun rather than frustrating? Like, do you have to like toe the line between, oh, this card is really hard to play with, but man, nobody wants to play with this card. It's just so
Oh,
unfun.
definitely. Classic example, Eye of the Storm. I will not add that card to my cube.
What does that one do?
Like 7 mana enchantment, the whenever instant or sorcery is cast, it goes under it, and then all the things under it get cast.
That's pretty
Just
miserable.
insane stacks that I don't want to have to deal with that. Yes, it would be difficult, but it just is more frustrating than fun. You always need to balance these things, whether you're designing a tower or a cube, same principles. Something that I'm actually trying to monitor right now is whether effects like concordant crossroads that introduce an effect that cause your opponents to lose the game if they don't remember the text on your card. If that's more fun or more frustrating.
Hmm,
I have a few in there right now, but it has been brought to my attention a couple times that it's something to watch.
that's interesting. So it's already enough that you have to pay attention to the cards that you have. So somebody
Hmm.
plays some weird card that was played turn one and you just forgot that it gave your stuff haste. And you're like, oh man,
Yep, because
definitely.
the exact wording of those cards is very different. Like fecundity, that's always on the controller to remember, but concordant is not.
That's pretty interesting. And one other question I have is I've played, like I mentioned, Judge Tower many
Mhm.
times at this point, and I'm pretty bad. What would you say are some of the key skills that would make somebody a good Judge Tower player?
Being able to think through how you want to sequence your plays to, in this format, minimize how much you have to do each turn, and being able to keep track of all these different moving pieces on your board, what you have and have not done this turn, what will happen whenever you propose taking this action.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, in normal Magic, you're trying to sequence your plays to get ahead. In
Mm-hmm.
this, you're trying to sequence your plays to, like with the card draw, take as few actions as possible, or
Yep.
potentially make your opponent's lives more confusing. It's just all about trying to confuse everybody as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell me about if somebody were to start their own Judge Tower, what would be some of the advice you would give them?
I think you really need to play the tower a little bit before you can try to make your own. So I would say just look up any rule set online that looks good to you. Grab a couple of friends and just like flip over a stack of bulk rares and try to just play it through that a little bit. Get a feel for what the game is like, get a feel for what kinds of gameplay you like and want out of it, and then start tuning and including cards from there to create the environment that you're looking for.
So do you think that playing Judge Tower actually helps somebody improve as a Magic player?
I think so. As with any kind of new way to play the game, it makes you think in a different way. Definitely makes you think through all your plays, gets you familiar with some possibly more niche interactions. And even when you lose, good odds that you are learning something about the game doing so.
Yeah, definitely. Like we mentioned, it can be pretty intense. You have to constantly be remembering all these triggers and just you get in your own head about like, oh, when I play a land, how exactly does it work?
Mm-hmm.
Or you just get into your head about the basic rules in ways that you've never gotten before. So it can definitely help, I think, with getting over high stress situations like in Magic and helping with your nerves. And I think that could even help people with playing at high stake events because there's nothing more nerve-wracking, I think, than having 10 cards in hand in Judge Tower and being like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess something up.
Yeah, that's interesting bringing up to high stakes events. I hadn't really considered that potential aspect of it, but yeah, I suppose that could certainly help getting practice there and intense stress and just being focused on the game.
Yeah. And also, like you mentioned, Judge Tower is a big part of it is just really learning to be able to analyze the board and
Hmm.
be able to pay attention to what is going on. And
Hmm.
that happens in Commander also, like when
Yeah.
somebody has a smothering tithe and did you pay the two? And people miss triggers all the time. I mean,
Hmm.
and then you go back like a turn ago, like, oh no, I forgot to ask you guys if you were going to pay the one for my heuristic study for these 8 spells. And then they're like, ah, just draw the 8 cards. We missed it. So I think really Commander is kind of becoming more and more like Judge Tower all the time. Like some of these cards they print are just crazy, like Trouble in Pairs. It's like whenever you sneeze, I draw a card, and whenever you get up for a drink of water, I draw a card, and it just feels like at a certain point you could build a deck that's just whenever you do anything, I draw a card. So
Oh,
that's something
definitely.
that's I honestly don't like how Commander is going that direction, but
Hmm.
I think Judge Tower can help you with improving these skills because there's so many different types of triggers when a card is put into a graveyard, when you draw a card, when you discard a card, when a creature enters, and you just have to think about so many different types of triggers at all
Hmm.
times. So I was wondering, are there different ways that somebody could build a judge tower? Do you think that you could build it to be more complicated or less complicated? Where would you say that yours fits in how complicated it could be? Do you think that you could include more cards that could be crazier? Or would you say that yours is like at the upper echelon of craziness?
So it's probably about as difficult as what I'm looking to do can be, but the designer of a tower has full control over how they want their games to play out. Some designers will cultivate a very brutal environment where every card could kill you kind of play style, while others want to play with perhaps less experienced players and make it more focused on maybe combat with a bunch of lords or tribal synergies where every creature is larger than it originally appears. Or you could make it more like layer centric, where abilities, types, characteristics are constantly being added and removed.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I feel like you could build a judge tower in a
Mhm.
way to teach yourself different things.
Yeah, if
Like you
there's one
could,
specific part of the game that you want to learn better, you can absolutely make a tower around that and come up with so many different scenarios to really make you think about what's going on here.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a funny way to teach new players. You just have 10 different judge towers that are of like different difficulties and have
Hmm.
it be like different boss battles of like, all right, you moved on past my level one judge tower that's all about combat damage, and now you have to think about sorceries and like
Yeah,
that'd be a
that
kind
would
of
be
a fun
cool.
way. Yeah, and have you played other judge towers?
Unfortunately, not. There was one at Vegas, but I didn't get to play it. I never found the guy that had it. I just saw it in the Discord. Mine is the only one that I've actually gotten to play. As I said, I've looked at online lists, but that's as close as I've gotten.
How do other online lists differ from yours?
I think mine's more brutal. There's certainly some gotcha cards in other lists that I had some in mine originally, to be fair, but I ended up feeling like they weren't really fun. They fell more into the frustrating category, or some lists have too many like blanks in them, cards that you draw and not super scared of, like just a bear with a little bit extra text.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. What were some cards that you've cut before?
The kind of gotcha cards, like for instance, I had a Fire Main Angel in there, which, long story short, if you activate it in response to its ability, it comes back from the graveyard on your upkeep, and then it doesn't do the thing that its trigger is supposed to do.
Oh,
If you do it in the sequence that the tower makes you. So it's really just like a gotcha. And it teaches you about that specific card and not really anything else. I also cut a lot of effects that like just triggered constantly, like Dragon Layer Spider, which is whenever a player casts a spell, make a token, in favor of effects that are more targeted. So, like Demon's Horn, whenever a player casts a black spell, gain a life.
yeah, that's interesting because I don't even know how difficult Dragon Lair Spider is to keep track of. If you just
Mm-hmm.
get used to every single thing it's going to trigger. If
Exactly.
anything, it
You
just
don't need
becomes
to
a
think
pain
about it. Opponent does something, you say trigger.
compared to the Demon's Horn, which is only black.
Mm-hmm. You
So
have to
it
actually be
become
paying attention.
yeah, definitely. Or something like Ristic Study. What did you pay the one on everything? That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really have much skill to it because
Yep,
it just basically becomes just an extra layer that everyone's doing all the time. So you don't even have to think about it. It's the things, like you said, that only trigger sometimes that can be much more difficult to keep track of.
precisely.
And what do you look for in a card when a new set comes out? Like, were there anything in Foundation, for example, that interested you for this cube?
Foundation had a lot of reprints, so there wasn't very much for me there. But I am constantly looking through the spoilers of every new set for potential includes. A recent All Star being like the new Norin.
Oh, what
That
does that one do?
it's a 1 mana 2/1 that can't block, and whenever any of your creatures become blocked, you can exile them and then cast them that turn.
Yeah, that's pretty complex. When would you cast it? How? Yeah, that's interesting.
And just rebuying all your creatures basically every turn because they have to attack every turn can be brutal.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so one question I had for you was with power creep, one thing that a lot of cube designers talk about all the time is so many cards are so complex. I ignore all the cards from commander sets because they have too many words and all this extra text that means nothing and things like oh, you enter the dungeon or the ring tempts you, crazy stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you try and include things that bring in like an extra thing into the game, like enter the dungeon or the ring tempts you, or some like text that means nothing on it, like choose a background? Like, do those kind of cards interest you?
I generally try to lean away from those just because of the extra game piece aspect to it that is not even close to explained on the card, and people are not going to all know. I have like Monarchy in there, but that one's relatively simple. It only does one thing. But as far as like power creep, that isn't really what this format is about. So oftentimes a card being pushed with power creep doesn't mean much for me when it's not played on the same axis. Like a 1 mana 10-ton unblockable would be insane in normal, but in this it wouldn't even be very good. Like the problem the standard had recently was like every card cantripping, just giving you more card advantage. There's a spot for that, but I only have so many slots for card advantage as well. The general trend of cards getting more complex, however, and new keywords coming out does help. I have been getting a decent number of new includes from those sorts of things.
Okay.
Classic new design example of ward replacing hexproof, phenomenal for the cube. Ward is a great mechanic to include here. It's a trigger and makes the opponent make a decision. Whereas hexproof, awful. It takes decisions away.
Yeah, that's interesting. Things like Shroud take
Mm-hmm.
away an access where it can't even be targeted. But
Mm-hmm.
Ward, you have to remember that's a trigger, and
Yep.
then you have to remember to pay the two or whatever because you
Mm-hmm.
have unlimited mana and unlimited life. It's just more steps you have to remember. And if anything, it teaches you how Ward
Yeah,
works more
a
in
lot
depth.
of players will just like in normal formats pay extra for the ward when they're originally casting the spell. No mention of a trigger is ever present.
Yeah, I think a lot of people play with Ward wrong. Yeah, that's cool. So it's interesting because, like we said, people talk about nowadays that cards are getting so complex. They're adding so many words to cards, and oh, now Questing Beast has 7 lines, and can you remember what Questing Beast all the words do? But
Absolutely.
it's absolutely not, no. But it's interesting because while cards do have more words on them, I would say often Wizards of the Coast and the people who make the game are getting better at knowing what cards just people don't even understand
Mm-hmm.
and don't even read. Because back in the day, it was a free-for-all.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Magic first started, it would be like some random dude who, hey, Jim, my friend, you want to make a set? And then it would be like, oh, okay. And then they would just add some crazy cards or whatever they thought of off the top of their head. And it would be 40 lines of text and like Raging River and like, oh, you put it on 2 sides of the river. And like, do you think that newer cards are more complex or older cards are more complex for this queue?
I would say newer ones are more complex. However, with older cards, the big thing was they were just being experimental with what could be printed on cards. A lot of those effects are very unique and don't see the modern design. Like, there's an enchantment in my tower that's like, return it to your hand, and one of your creatures that entered this turn becomes an O1 until your next turn, at which point you put 3 counters on it, which is just crazy. Changing a creature's base power with no like counters or anything to denote this. The card that did it not even being in play anymore. Crazy to have to try to remember,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that barely even fits in the rules of Magic.
right?
But they didn't care about rules back then.
Oh,
They were like, ah,
absolutely.
they'll figure it out. That's really cool. Yeah, because I feel like back in the day, sure, cards have a lot of text on them now, but
Mm-hmm.
there are some old cards that I just literally refuse to read. I'm like, it's the text is like the size of like an ant and it's
Mm-hmm.
tiny and it just says some stuff that means absolutely nothing. It could have just been boiled down to like a creature doesn't untap or something, but it's
Yep.
like 400 lines of text. Are those kinds of cards good for Judge Tower? Cards that are just so unbelievably wordy and just like, what am I even reading? Are those the kind of cards you try and include?
Wordy cards, yes, but things like that where it's Oracle changes, no, I don't put in the Oracle changes. But cards like New Commander said, Saruman of many colors, that guy has a paragraph on him.
I couldn't tell you what that card does.
No one can. I don't even really remember what he does. I need to read it every single time and still probably get it wrong.
Do you sometimes try and include like weird versions of cards that are even harder to read, like the secret lair version that's just like actually impossible to read?
Nah, I don't want to make it difficult for players to read. This is a game of trying to figure out the rules of the game and not forgetting the rules. I don't want to add in the extra difficulty of just not being able to read the text on the thing you're looking at.
Was it the One Ring that was like
Yeah, the
broken
one
into like
ring.
three
Yep.
areas and like it was just unreadable? So one question I had for you is sometimes they print a mechanic and they say maybe it'll become more popular and then it just gets forgotten about. And then 5 years later, I think very few people could tell you what that mechanic does. Like, for example, battles. I
Hmm.
mean, there's so many strange complexities when it comes to battles. Like,
Hmm.
oh, they exile and they cast, and then you can attack them and then they flip. And the battles weren't even good. So many players at this point don't even fully remember how they work.
Yep.
Do you include cards like that?
Absolutely. Not all of them, but whenever Wizards prints a new card type or keyword, I like to take a look through all the different cards with it and see if there are any that would make a good inclusion. I don't want to include any of those cards just because it has a new effect. So it like has to also just be an interesting card for the tower to people that do know how it works. Like a good example would be the Dream Devourer gives cards in your hand foretell. This requires players to know how foretell works, which is not a given at all. Even if they do know how it works, then cool. It's still interesting in that it allows them to foretell their whole hand and get an extra turn cycle before they need to deal with all those cards. And it even has an added bonus of a trigger for whenever you foretell a card that you need to remember.
Oh my gosh, Foretell. I couldn't tell you the rules behind that mechanic well at all. That's
Exactly.
another one that they just printed that I feel like could also in a year people aren't going to remember how it works
Hmm.
well. Brooms from Duskmorn.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you get excited when they just like announce some crazy new card type like rooms or something?
Oh yeah. I know there will be some Scryfall searches in my future.
Yep. One thing that you do with the cube that's really fun is because the cube is proxied,
Hmm.
you when somebody dies to a card, you take it out of the sleeve and you write on it with Sharpie a tally to
Yep.
say, oh, this card has killed people this many times. It's even more daunting because you draw the card and you're like, oh my gosh, this card has killed 30 people. What do I do? Or sometimes you draw a card and it's killed no people. And if anything, sometimes that's more scary because it's like, I don't want to be the first one to die to this card. It can't even be that difficult. What are some of the most like cards that have killed people the most? And what about them makes them so brutal?
The cards with the most tally marks is probably a card that is super simple, seemingly innocuous, and it's just a very easily forgotten about effect. That card is Soul Warden.
Mm.
Super easy, simple creature that you
What does
just
that one
forget
do?
about. It 1 mana, 1/1. Whenever a creature enters, gain a life. That's
Hmm.
it. However, one of the most difficult cards in the cube doesn't have all that many tallies. The fuse spell Beck and Call. It immediately draws you four individual cards and says for the rest of the turn, you'll draw another card whenever a creature enters play. Card is extremely likely to kill whoever has to play with it, but it doesn't have that many tallies on it because it is rarely the thing that is actually forgotten.
Yeah, that's funny. It reminds me of, for example, in modern expressive iteration, for a
Mm-hmm.
while, everyone was saying this card, while it might not be the card that is so out in the open broken,
Mm-hmm.
it's allowing the rest of the deck to function and be broken, like Murktide, for example, or
Yep.
how it was in Pioneer. I feel like something like Beck and Call is similar, where it's not directly killing you, but it's making it so you're dead. You have no
Uh,
chance.
exactly.
What are some other cards that have been really brutal?
Cards that enter do something, but also have an ability like Golos or Urza,
Oh
where
gosh.
they will have an enters play effect, but then you need to respond to their own enters play effect by activating them. People
Yeah,
like to just do ETBs when the creature enters.
that's a really funny part about it. Judge Tower is that you have to take actions as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to respond to your own triggers. And so that's really an interesting part of it.
Mm-hmm. You can't shortcut anything in this game like you can usually.
And one thing that's interesting about Judge Tower is that your hand is not revealed. You still
Mhm.
have your hand closed.
Yep.
Like people can't see it. So people might be making mistakes. People
Mm-hmm.
won't know it. Have you ever considered making it so it's open face your hand so people can say, "Oh, you messed up. You didn't play that card."
That is on the list of things that I'm again circling back to. I'm not sure that my rule set is optimal. There's that, I have it so when you make your mistake, you're out for the round. Some people don't do that. Some give you like three chances and then you're out for the round.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Interesting. There's a lot of different
Mhm.
ways you could do it. Yeah. Tell me about some of your favorite moments that you've experienced in Judge Tower. Like, what are your favorite plays that you've seen?
So one that happened recently was a Tidal Barracuda, which gives everyone's things flash with an assault suit on it, which says at the beginning of each upkeep, the player whose upkeep it is can gain control of this creature, and a font of mythos. So I pass the turn to Ian. He will gain control of my Tidal Barracuda, draw a card for turn, have to play it, and then draw another two still in the draw step and have to play those as well. And then he can proceed with the rest of his turn. Or one that I always go back to as a fun highlight was someone playing a kicked right of replication to make five copies of a Xantia, which
Oh,
resolved. And there's problems right there with how do a bunch of Xantias enter. And then we got to the resolution of everyone in the pod having a copy of a Xantia, and then each player has to activate each individual one every single turn. So throughout a turn cycle, you have to carefully pass priority so many times, and you will end up with plus 16 cards each turn
oh my gosh,
when it
that's
gets back to
miserable.
your turn. Oh, yeah.
Oh
It
my
was
gosh.
great.
Are there any cards that you're currently considering adding to the Judge Tower?
Oh, I always have a list of cards going. Lazav, Wearer of Faces. We have Lasping Jasper Flint.
Which,
And
what do those do?
so Lazav will make clues and exile cards from grave and become copies of the things it exiles.
Becoming a
For
copy of things is always a mess.
Oh yeah, Lazav is great for this. He has at least two other copies of Lazav in here.
Yep.
Copying things is great.
Yes.
Jasper will just steal cards from your opponent's deck, but shared deck. So basically just drawing you cards. But the amount of cards that he exiles is variable depending on how many assassins, mercenaries, outlaws you have. And then we have Dress Down as a cantripping one turn effect for humility, being able to get a little bit of that humility flair in there without locking the game under it.
Very cool. I love it. It's been a lot of fun having you on, talking about Judge Tower. It's really sweet. Are there any other closing thoughts you have before we want to wrap up?
Judge Tower is one of my favorite formats that this game has to offer. It's a travesty how few people actually are able to get exposed to it. I really hope to see it take off a little bit more, people start playing it and enjoying it in the future of the game. We'll see if that actually happens, but I have hope.
Same here. I hope that it becomes more of a popular thing. Is like I said, I think it's a really great way to learn. I've definitely learned a lot from
Mhm.
Judge Tower. It's really helped me to be able to keep track of triggers or really strange rules, interactions, like we said, like the layers and things like that. And there's so many ways that it could be built. I've
Yeah,
definitely thought to build one before. I just get a little nervous because I'm like, oh, would this even be difficult? I don't know how to make it hard.
the only way to tell is to try it out. And then you can
Yes.
tune it from there. Same as any kind of cube. So many ways to do it, so many different dials to turn.
Yes, awesome. And thank you all for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow, and hope you all enjoy the next episode and have a great night.